All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course. I believe chat is working. We have Russ Hanneman saying clank and claiming first. Don't do that, by the way. Short and Salt 7, good morning, Clankers and the Salty Army. And no Forex, the only army I can get into. So we'll make sure that we're actually live here. Come on, Rumble. Show me some love. Show me some sugar. I think we're live. Yeah, we're live on Rumble. Okay, perfect. We've got a lot to talk about now. We've got to talk about the J6 footage release, a little bit of a teaser drop, actually. Apparently, we're going to get more over the weekend from Tucker Carlson. Now, I am not a huge Tucker Carlson fan because he works for the legacy media, namely Fox News. But he's doing a good job here. He's got the liberals all riled up. So we will give him credit for what he has done here with regards to some of the leftoids out there that they want to pretend that there was an insurrection, of course, on January 6th. Never really happened. You've got plenty of footage to that effect. That's a funny one. Also, the pedophile, former mayor of a Maryland city, and his connections to Pete Buttigieg and the fact that he visited the White House on 6 different occasions might be kind of newsworthy. We'll talk about that. And AOC's hypocrisy, of course, among other things. There's also a Dutch topic because on the news the other day, they were talking about there's a bunch of wolves, actually, that have moved into the Netherlands at the De Hoge Veluwe. I have no clue how to fucking pronounce it. National Park. And they're protected under wildlife laws within Europe. And so people are getting spastic over that. I like wolves. I'll just say that up front. So that might taint my perspective of the situation. We've got lots and lots to talk about here. And already people pouring in, of course. You'll love to see it. Anyway, we'll start off with the New York Post coverage. January 6th footage shows Capitol cops escorting QAnon shaman to Senate floor. Yes, we do have new footage from J6, and it doesn't really show the riot that it's been cast off as being. Now, I would say this. Most of the people that watched Trump speak, it was 20,000 plus people on that day on January 6th. Most of them didn't participate in the actual extended march. Most of the people that did participate in the extended march did not enter the Capitol on that day. It's a very small proportion of those people. It was a riot. There were scuffles happening. There were people that were assaulted, both protesters turned rioters and Capitol Police. That did happen. There was destruction of property. There was vandalism, certainly trespass, although in the People's House, I don't know that that really technically applies, but legally speaking, for legal purposes, it does. That being said, there was no insurrection attempt. There was no real fear among any reasonable people. A few people did die, notably Ashley Babbitt, who was shot, well unarmed, by the way, the only unarmed protester ever shot by a cop that the left didn't give a damn about because she had the wrong color of hat on. She was the only one killed that day. Sicknick and all of the others, they died later. Had nothing to do with the riot itself. There was no insurrection. There was no attempt to overthrow the U.S. government. There was no attempt to kill members of Congress. There were some hyperbolic chants and signs, and people dragged out the guillotine for show, and people misconstrued that as being serious. Further, it didn't involve anything that Trump had encouraged or said. If you listen to his speech, and it's available for literally everyone to listen to, he called for people to peaceably march to the Capitol to make their grievances heard. That involves standing in front of the Capitol and shouting slogans. It happens literally all of the time. Far less violent than the Kavanaugh protests in D.C., as they were cast, the fiery but mostly peaceful Summer of Love extension protests there, where millions and millions of dollars in damage were done and dozens of Secret Service agents were injured, and the White House had to go into lockdown mode, actually. I found it funny. Those same liberals ridiculed Trump for being a coward and fleeing when the protesters were outside. Yeah, people who were attempting to literally storm the White House. Had they been successful, you would have had a mass casualty incident on your hands. But leftoids tend to be physically diminutive. They're not strong or strategically wise, so they were unable to break through the police barricades, thankfully. Top Jack-O-Matic Sticks, have you been hitting the gym? Looking buff as fuck. Hell no. Of course not. Although my legs are in good shape because I walk all the time. Skyclad Wanderer, see the AI sticks thing? Barney is an insidious devil. No, I don't think I did. Applied Force, been watching your content for years. I figure it's about damn time that you get your due, so here's a 20. Clank on, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate all donations to the cause of clankdom. Immortal Legend, Roseanne Barland was also beat to death by cops during J6. Ashley wasn't the only purpose. Yes, apparently there was another individual who was beaten to death by the police. I didn't get as much airplay, I guess. Jimmy's World, I've seen so much hate and division and lies from the left of the past 3 years in Burlington, it's hard to fathom. Will they apologize for the lies? Hell no. Nobody's going to try to compel them to apologize for their excesses and their various crimes and misdemeanors. Red Muskrat, you were talking about hacking smart cars. I sent you a DM on Twitter, same handle, about something you may find interesting. I don't know if I can say it on YouTube. Hope you get to check it out. I'll check my DMs and see. Who Lover, hi Sticks, I have an exam in my circuits class soon. I'll catch the live stream later. Can't wait. Clank. Good luck on your exam. Tic-Tac-Toad, why do you think Tim Pool is so egotistical? Well, those of us who have become larger end content creators typically do have a bit of an ego. I would speak for myself in saying I do think highly of myself, but I look at it as like the proof is in the pudding. You know, you're interesting to tens, hundreds of thousands of people and stuff. So again, I'm no hypocrite. I am forthcoming about these things. Hopium Gardener, being a liberal right now must be very tough. Just realizing everything you've been fed throughout each year of your life is wrong must be depressing. Yes, but if you have cognitive dissonance and you refuse to realize that, it makes it a lot easier, I think. Next news story. Maryland mayor arrested on CP charges, visited White House at least 6 times. Yes, this is Democrat Patrick Wojahn. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Wojahn, who gives a fuck? Currently convicted criminal. Resigned from his role as the mayor of College Park, Maryland on Wednesday, shortly before he was arrested on 40 counts of possession of CP and 16 counts of distribution. So he's going to spend the rest of his life, hopefully, in prison for that. Law enforcement began investigating Wojahn after the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, one of the few acronym groups that actually does a good job, notified Prince George's County Police of a suspicious social media account that was ultimately attributed to the mayor. Police searched his home in late February and seized multiple cell phones, a storage device, a tablet, and a computer. And it must have been pretty obvious what was there, considering the fact that they acted immediately, as opposed to sitting on the case. Wojahn, who has overseen the city of 35,000 people since 2015, first visited the White House on June 25th, 2021 for an event commemorating LGBTQ+, and that plus is the MAP part, Pride Month, Fox News reported. He posted pictures to Instagram, not those kind of pictures, though, I guess, posing alongside Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg and Buttigieg's husband with the caption, always great to see these guys at the White House. Yeah, that's going to go over really, really well. Put him in prison for a good long time. And, there was an old joke. How did it go? There were a couple of people, they were convicted of drug possession. And as part of their plea deal, they didn't have to go to jail, but they had to try to convince other people not to be on drugs. And the first one, he comes into the office before the judge or whatever. And he says, I convinced 13 people to give up drugs and go into rehab. Judge is like, oh, great. How'd you do that? And he points to a picture that he made. And there's a little circle and a big circle. He says, the big circle is your brain off drugs. And the little one is your brain on drugs. It's sort of like that fried egg joke from the 90s. And he's like, okay, well, you've done your deal. You can go. Second dude comes in and he says, well, I convinced 500 people to give up drugs and go to rehab. The judge is like, wow, how the hell did you do that? And he holds up a picture and there's a little circle and he's like, okay, this is your ass before prison. And then there's a big one. He's like, this is your ass after prison. I think that applies in this case. Prisoners do not generally like child molesters. He'll get his. Good riddance. Hopefully he has some severe intestinal problems and bleeds out or something. But he's Pete Buttigieg's friend, and it's slightly problematic that he visited the White House on multiple occasions since 2021. So this is Biden's close friend too. Ozzy's robots. When do corporatists realize leftoids are a danger? They just use them as pawns. They think they can control them. Oscar Gonzalez. Sticks, what do you think of the Beast of Gévaudan was in Gévaudan, France? I've covered this in an occult video and talked about the very good movie Brotherhood of the Wolf based on those events. I think it was a young lion. I think that a French noble in Africa, or possibly a panther, that fits too. It was a felid, not a canid. The people of France at the time would not have recognized it because it wasn't native, so they described it how they could, as a wolf. I think that a noble went to Africa, or possibly their colony in South America, caught a large felid, probably at the time still a cub, and brought it back. And they gave it to their kid or something, and it was considered cute. And then it started growing. They either turned it loose figuring that the winter would kill it because it was from a tropical climate, or it got big enough so that it could jump the fence of their chateau. And of course, there was a cover-up involved because they were wealthy and they didn't want to have to shell out to people. And the king didn't want any problems. Hey, your nobles are bringing back these creatures here, and it mauled like 20, 30 people. Nobody wanted those problems, so they sent out a hunter to kill the animal, also kill a large wolf, and bring it back and blame it as the actual culprit. I do believe it was a cover-up in the most political sense. It was not a wolf, definitely not. Some people have said a thylacine. The problem is that this happened before thylacines were actually classified because Australia had not yet been actually colonized at the time in the middle of the 1700s. It was a felid. It was a big cat of some sort or another. Suppose it could have been a puma imported from North America. I don't know that fits as well as a lion or possibly a large panther. General Hydra, so how you be doing? All right. And Trump's speech in that CPAC, is that good? And January 6th video going to be a fun time. Yes, Trump did do well at CPAC, which is why the liberal media largely didn't talk about the things that he said, but how he delivered them. And then the fact that CPAC wasn't exactly a packed event. Iron Age Media. I think you and the Clankers would like Iron Age Media, a site about indie creators. Now I'm launching Anvil Magazine to take it to a new level. Trying to build counterculture physical media. Clank. Sounds pretty cool. Tic-tac-toed. Tim said he'd beat you in a fight. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. David Hunter got die re-education this morning at work. Why women need equality or equity? Likely jumping to a new job soon. Oh, God. General Hydra. There any true progressive right now like Jimmy Dore? Not many of them, no. Most of them have jumped on the extreme pro-war platform and will call you an idiot if you disagree with them. By the way, there is a pinned comment if you're watching on YouTube and in the description cross-platform. Actually, Stephen J. Howard, who acted as my lawyer once, he got review bombed by a disgruntled, I guess, person that he had faced in court or client or something. I'm not 100% sure. And we acted to reverse the review bomb a few days ago, and it went very well. But they're still at it on Facebook. It looks like they abandoned the battlefield on Google reviews. They said, fuck it. But on Facebook, they keep making fake accounts to try to tar and feather the name of somebody who can probably sue them. It's not the most wise thing to do. So I would appreciate it if you take that link. If you use Boomer Book at all, just go to that page and give them like a good review or something like that. Nicholas H. 144K peeps on BitChute. Wonder if they are sealed. Hopium Gardner, did you happen to watch Nick Fuentes' AFPAC speech? Probably one of the best political speeches I've seen in a long while. No, I haven't actually. I should probably look that up. Cybrav, I'm looking into moving to New Hampshire from Oregon. Do you have an opinion on which areas might be best? I've looked at the Keene area. Keene is pretty good. Outer Manchester, probably not inner Manchester. That's more big city feel. It's about the size of Burlington, a little bit big for someone like me. Even Anjade is a little bit big and technically smaller than Burlington's metro. But yeah, the Seacoast region, around that area is pretty nice. Hampton Beach is great, but it's kind of pricey. Anywhere, basically. New Hampshire is great. Concord is fine. Have to smell all the politicians and lawyers there, though. Duran Albane, January 6th Q Shaman was known over a year ago. Seen the part where he was inside on the floor already with the cops. Yes, a lot of it is like basically it's not new news. It's something we already knew. But people in Fox News, Soccer Mom, Polite Society, a lot of them don't know it. So it's good that they're exposed to the reality that there was no insurrection. Third man is there ain't never not been no nothing, a quintuple negative. Ain't never not been no nothing. Or pentuple, potentially, I suppose. Shane Keena, have you seen what's happened at Cop City in Atlanta? Yes, we will be talking about the SPLC tie-in to that unfortunate event. Oh boy, do they have egg on their fucking face. Lev Polyakov, good morning, Sticks. Do you recall particular laws which the Geek Squad tried to pass connected to punishing businesses if they don't have X amount of Y people? In specific, I can't recall any specific bill, but I know that that's a thing that's been pushed. Mostly it's on state level, though, as opposed to on national. Next news story. How did Ocasio-Cortez intend to pay for her Met Gala dress? Do you remember the tax the rich dress that Little Miss Rich Girl wore to the Met Gala that time? An investigation found that Representative AOC might have broken House ethics rules by delaying paying her gala expense. Apparently, some of the price was knocked off outright. And then she's blaming a staffer who's taking the fall for this. But the idea was that she didn't actually pay the total in time, and that it was sometime later. Upon request, she paid it, which is, finally, begrudgingly, she decided to give them the money that was due to them. And she's getting congratulations from leftoids for doing that. What a spectacular individual. At issue are the payments for the rental of the dress, jewelry, shoes, and a bag she wore to the event, as well as the costs of her makeup, hair, transportation, and about $5,000 for a share of rooms at the Carlisle Hotel, where she prepared for the gala, probably by boozing it up with Hillary Clinton. Her campaign did eventually pay all the costs from her personal accounts as required by law, but it did so only after the House Ethics Committee began an inquiry into the issue in March, an investigation by the Office of Congressional Ethics found. So basically, AOC tried to stiff this designer multiple thousands of dollars and hoped to get away with it with the tax the rich dress, which makes it ultra ironic and hypocritical. Didn't quite get away with it and then said, oh, well, shit, it's pocket change to me. I've got a six-figure salary as a representative, number one. I've got plenty of other shit going on that I can make money off of because, I can get paid to literally go on a talk show, number two, which shouldn't even be allowed, by the way, by politicians. And so she, in the end, she finally ponied up the money. So good on her, poor little rich girl. She's such a champion of the people, including her abuela, who people were trying to raise money for because her house was wrecked and Trump didn't fix it. And then she personally weighed in on the GoFundMe page and got it taken down, even though she wasn't legally capable of doing so. I guess money talks. General Hydra, how do you hear about a YouTuber's name, Real American? I don't think I've heard of Real American. Maybe I have. Terry T, morning Sticks, keep up the awesomeness. Hashtag Clank Nation. Exactly. L.A. Thorne the Martian, Sticks, are you still a U.S. citizen in the Netherlands? If so, why still pay the federal taxes? Other countries don't tax based on citizenship like St. Kitts. The U.S. does, though. I have to pay U.S. taxes as well, so I have no choice. The U.S. is also, I think, the only country that charges you to actually give up your citizenship. But yes, I am still a U.S. citizen. I also have to pay the Vermont state taxes, or I guess I do. I do anyway. Maybe I'm paying thousands of dollars for no reason, but I don't want any legal problems. Lev Polyakov, I'm currently drinking the Japanese canned Boss coffee. Highly recommend and check out the commercials with Tommy Lee Jones as an alien living in Japan. Interesting. So yeah, poor AOC. She had to pony up a few grand. Next story, as queried, the SPLC legal observer, lawyer, going along with this. Link in the description, by the way, not archived because this is a video clip from Posobiec. And Antifa, the other day, decided to attack a police facility in Atlanta in force. There were hundreds of them. They finally got dispersed in the end. They did catastrophic damage, basically arson, domestic terrorism charges apply, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a reason these things happen in Portland or in Atlanta, and they don't typically happen in Kalamazoo. They don't happen down in Dallas. You'll note that there is a differential with regards to where Antifa bothers to get together in groups of larger than 3 or 4 for anything other than putting up fucking stickers to advertise their stupid agency, which is basically what it is. It's a corporate grift, sponsored partially by George Soros, by the Democratic Party in the most real sense. Lots of arson here, lots of tear gas deployed. People are not happy about this, but the SPLC is the most unhappy because their legal observer was actually participating in the riot itself. Trespass, arson, supposedly, among other things, and is now facing an actual jail sentence. And the SPLC bothered to weigh in on it. They actually released a presser earlier. You can look it up for yourself. Go to the SPLC Center's page on Twitter or anywhere else. They're making excuses for it. Well, we're very, very concerned that our legal observer was detained for these charges. We're very, very concerned about this. Yeah, hashtag hate has no place in the United States and all that fucking shit. I'm not surprised, though. The SPLC is glued at the hip to groups like Antifa. They all party together, and they're basically all involved with one another. One group causes chaos, rioting. And then when anyone else responds, the SPLC comes in and they call them a bunch of Nazis. That's basically the way that it seems to work. So, yeah, I hope that they detain this individual for as long as possible. I hope that they go to prison on arson and other charges. Good riddance. Get them off the street. Yeah, legal observer is what they are terming this individual, an actual accredited lawyer taking part in a domestic terrorism exercise, which was obviously pre-planned. Yeah, hundreds of Antifa members just showed up spur of the moment. There was no planning whatsoever. This individual was among them, which means there must have been prior communication. That's going to sting in a court of law, assuming that the jury's not completely out to lunch. Hopefully they don't bend over and offer a plea deal. Well, what about minor vandalism charges? Don't worry, you'll keep your law license and go back to your practice tomorrow. I hope that they don't extend that to him. King of Biltong. Good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Hashtag Clank Nation. You can get your biltong. Lots of clanking going on. Oh my God. X Theanoir X. Good morning, Sticks. Thank you for the motivation to start a garden. I now have 2 raised garden beds, a couple buckets of veggies, and a composter. Good on you. Now make even more of them. Get totally addicted to gardening and keep expanding until you can barely maintain it. So yeah, SPLC, one of their lawyers has been detained as part of a literal domestic terrorist operation there, which is funny as fuck. Next news story. Can a Trump was right slogan be a winning theme in 2024? Trump can gain voters' trust by reminding them he was mostly correct. Well, of course he was. Here's my thoughts in a nutshell. Trump can run on the I was right slogan if and only if things continue to be shitty in the United States. If the economy continues to be lackluster, gas prices continue to be fairly historically high, Biden hasn't really accomplished anything other than things that, only partisan Democrats would like. If that trend continues, absolutely, this would be the right way to do it. Just say, look at how much better things were under me as opposed to the current dude, fucking vote for me. That would be a winning line. However, if things improve, and I mean, politics aside, and obviously I hope things do improve for the U.S. I don't want to see higher gas prices. I don't want higher inflation, Bidenflation. Certainly don't want World War III. If things do get better, though, this slogan would not work. You can remind people that you are right about things in a more passive sense. You're going to need a more expansive set of planks in your platform. We'll see which one is the case roughly by the end of this year, probably. We'll be able to get a read and a bead on roughly how the economic and social situation will be. What we do know is that inflation remains fairly high. It's linear now. It's not actually falling, but thankfully it's no longer particularly rising. We know that crime is up. That's gone more linear now too. Again, thankfully, asterisk thankfully. That's fine. Right now, things are still relatively dicey, but the thing is the population has a low attention span. So they get normalized to the new norm of having all of these problems. Basically, the only thing that hasn't popped off is unemployment. We'll see what happens with regards to the Fed's activities over the coming months. Trump can make this work. I do believe that he will be the Republican nominee. Right now, there's no one else in the field really to compete with him. If the field packs, if it becomes larger, then it becomes arguably easier for him, even if DeSantis gets in and he's the only other real viable candidate. I hope Pence gets in, because it would be funny to see him be Trump's verbal punching bag, for example. All of these things that are going on. Yes, Trump can trot the slogan out. It would probably be wiser to have a more positive unity message, but he can dovetail the two together. That's what I would say in a nutshell. I find it funny, though. They're acting like basically they're acting. Well, I'll just go through this. There are several points that they make here. War, number one. Trump didn't start any new wars. He withdrew from Afghanistan, although Biden botched it. So that's not necessarily the greatest selling point because it can be nullified. Well, Biden is a warmonger. He likes nation building. The economy, there really is no comparison other than the tail end of the Trump administration with the COVID lockdowns, and that was state level. I keep getting into sparring with people on this subject, by the way. The Middle East, you remember the Abraham Accords? Yeah, I'll just say that word and leave it at that. And then they go through like the FBI, the Energy Department, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What you can't do, though, is say that Trump can simply trot that out, run on it, and be reelected. People like me and people like many of you are cognizant of the fact that Donald Trump did a demonstrably and considerably better job than Joe Biden has done. Other people within the population, if their situation hasn't changed massively for the worse, and if they have partisan leanings at all, they're not going to be wowed by that message. You have to take it to the independent voters. Many of them are hurting economically, and Trump can't simply point out, hey, the economy was better under me. That's too easily countered. You have to point out what you're going to do to make it better the next time around. Now, it can be a doubling down. Hey, the economy was better under me, and here's how I accomplished that. That would be perfectly fine. You probably want to go a little bit further, though. I think the baby bonuses are a good start, etc. I think that Trump is doing a good job so far in his campaign, considering the fact that the legacy media is conducting a literal blackout of all information about Trump, unless it's particularly bad and they can spin it as being worse than it is. Shane Keena, Jimmy Carter and George Soros are a dyad of left-wing power in America and abroad. What will the impact of their deaths have? Little impact. They'll just be replaced. Bara, have you ever checked out Joshua Wiseman's cooking channel? 7.58 million subs, over 1 billion views. No, I never heard of him, actually. I like cooking channels. I watch cooking shit more often than anything else, actually. Callahan SF2211, what are Donald J. Trump's biggest 2 faults? Mine, loves hiring swamp creatures and sometimes best to not say anything at all. I would agree on hiring the wrong people. His hires sometimes left something to be desired. That would probably be his biggest failing. Secondly, while he's less authoritarian than the alternatives, he still does go over into authoritarian land sometimes. For example, the Syrian airstrikes. And this was in the first, I think, couple of weeks of his presidency, insinuating that we should bring back the CIA's black sites, things like that. He didn't come out early enough against tech censorship, although that's now a major campaign platform. He didn't really come out against that early and often enough, and I think that that's a blot on his legacy in his first term. He should have immediately come out and lambasted the tech firms which were engaging in censorship against law-abiding American citizens for simply saying political things. Maxwell JW. Just watched Come and See by Ilham Klimov the other day for the first time. Highly recommend. Any notable war movies you've seen that are particularly realistic? Anything foreign? I like The Longest Day. That's one of my favorites. And Sink the Bismarck, which is kind of campy at times, but it's pretty good. I don't know. I kind of like the old wave, especially British-made, like World War II movies, I think are great. Watch Platoon. Shaving Ryan's Privates. Oh, I mean, Saving Private Ryan. That's an old joke, by the way. Ozzy's Robots. Trump needs to announce his cabinet, FBI director, CIA director, AG, Secretary of State, etc. now to prove he won't repeat the same mistakes. That would probably be a bad idea because then it gives more time for people to take pot shots at them for something they said 30 years prior. And the baby is coming down. So actually, I think that I'm going to have to cut this short. Oh, actually, is the baby going back up? Oh, okay, I guess she's actually going back up. Never mind. Next news story. Dutch nature reserve not allowed to catch or kill the wolves living in it. I promised to cover this particular story. The wolves that are living in one of the Netherlands national parks can't currently be removed because they are protected under EU conventions, because they are an endangered species. They're native to the region, but they all got hunted to extinction. And I saw the other day on TV, they were having a debate about what to do about it. And some people were like, well, just kill them. You know, they've attacked some livestock. They had some dead sheep that were lined up, and they were blaming the wolves for attacking the livestock. Now, as a fan of the Dutch farmers and a supporter of the Dutch farm protests with their tractors, I have to say you need to understand about wolves that they are not particularly aggressive under general circumstances. They will attack livestock. You have the capability of erecting fences, I'm sure, to prevent the livestock from being generally predated upon. I can understand, there might be culling or losses that happen, but they can be mitigated quite easily. The fact is that the wolves were there before you were. That they're part of that same biosystem. And it smacks of NIMBYism in one sense. I remember like in the state of Vermont, where I'm from originally, Vermont doesn't have any wolves. They sporadically, they trespass through the area, but there are no wolf populations in Vermont. Used to be full of timber wolves. So what they did is they killed them all because they came in, they were farming at first sheep and then beef actually, and leather cows. And they tore down the forests and they hunted bears to near extinction and wolves and catamounts to extinction. And they've talked about reintroducing wolves. And people say, well, no, wolves, they might attack our pets. They might attack the livestock. They might attack humans. But they were already there. People coexisted with them. They had no problem with them. Wolf attacks on humans are exceptionally rare unless they have rabies. They should be allowed in that particular zone. Why would you want to catch or kill them? If you catch them and try to remove them, they'll just come back later. If you kill them, then, that's kind of purposeless now, isn't it? Mostly they'll probably go after little deer. Apparently they're going after little goat-like creatures that live in that particular national park. And they're like, well, they're killing all the goats. Shit, dude, this is the Netherlands. There's probably more goats in it than there are people in some parts of the Netherlands. Don't worry about it too much. I like wolves, and so that definitely taints my particular opinion. And then the final news story, the Peter Buttigieg principle. This is actually an interesting idea. It's from Lawrence J. Peter. And the idea is that people tend to rise up through hierarchical ranks, like in a corporation or something, and according to their merit. If merit is considered at all, and it's not a woke corporation, this is apt. And eventually they get to the point where they're promoted beyond their capacity, beyond their actual capabilities. And so the reason you have a bunch of incompetent workers is because people who are competent at every lower level they've been at before have been promoted to too high a level. And so the proper thing to do, of course, is kick them back down, which they wouldn't think too kindly of. And so you end up with a bunch of incompetent workers because a lot of people have gone beyond where they're actually capable of functioning. This article claims that Buttigieg falls in that category. Hey, he was doing fine as mayor, well, reasonable. But now he's transport secretary, and he's been promoted to a position he's incompetent for. Now, I happen to agree with that, although I don't drag in this particular principle, although it really is an interesting concept, and I have to read a little bit more about it, actually, because it does make sense when you think about it. What I think is the fact is that it's literally just carpetbagging. We've seen this before, and this is why I keep drawing comparisons to another disaster that hit the United States, which was Hurricane Katrina. When Hurricane Katrina hit in Bush's second term, the head of FEMA had been carpetbagged into that position despite having relatively little experience with anything related to disaster relief, therefore causing a secondary disaster where the response was slow, it was lackluster, and the first thing they did was confiscate everyone's firearms in the city, which I'm not sure was ever borne out as particularly constitutional, but I think they got away with it taking grandma's shotgun away. Anyway, what happened is that people were internally displaced by the tens of thousands. A quarter of the city of New Orleans was effectively destroyed. A significant proportion was heavily damaged. It took a hell of a long time for the economy there to stabilize. The next year, people were still complaining about mold in a lot of residencies. I remember the coverage there from the time. But that's because the head of FEMA had not been chosen to head FEMA because of qualifications or because of any particular skills, but simply by being a friend of George W. and being tangentially related to that role. Buttigieg is fundamentally the same. Buttigieg doesn't understand anything about transport. He likes trains, and that's literally the qualification for the job. And when you ran for president, You endorsed me early, so you've gained my favor. You've curried Biden's favor. You seem like a woke individual. You're gay, and so you tick at least one grievance box. You're not far left, but you're also not on the right, so you strike an accord with Biden in the political sense, and you just look the part, and we're grooming you for a future presidential run. The problem is, if you can't make it as transport secretary because of one goddamn derailment, you probably are not going to be a good president of the United States, and Buttigieg himself has sealed the deal. I predicted that this would effectively sink his political career, and I hold to that. Now I think it's definite. Buttigieg came out more recently and effectively admitted to the stupidity of the response. Well, yes, of course, we would have done something differently. I'm really sorry about this. Yeah, I know this looks bad, guys, but try to keep an open mind. I know you've got chronic bronchitis and your eyes are burning and you can barely breathe and shit like that, but just trust me, dude. Everything's perfectly fine here in East Palestine. I don't think that the public thinks that it's fine. Even now that it's falling out of the news cycle, I think that it's going to take a chunk out of Pete Buttigieg's political viability. If he were to mount a run now, in bizarro world where this didn't happen and everything transport-wise at least was generally going okay, and Biden steps down, I would favor him as the heir apparent. I would favor him as probably the one that becomes the nominee and possibly wins the general election. It depends on who he's running against. Don't know that he'd do well against Trump or DeSantis, but, you imagine him against Mike Pompeo or Nikki Haley. Yeah, he could probably hold his own in a debate with them. Just imagine the Dems candidates, Marianne Williamson. Boy, would that be the most fun debate in human history. Now, though, I give it 50-50 as to whether he continues in politics or just doesn't take his toys and go home. This would be a really, really big problem for him if he runs again. Because whoever he's running against to say, look, it's the transport secretary from East Palestine. Oh, you remember that time that you lit all of those chemicals on fire, told people everything was hunky-dory, and then spent 2 weeks not going there as transport secretary? Do you remember that one? And he already has a couple of other problems. One of the big problems is he doesn't shine for the left. The left does not like Pete Buttigieg. He's too white and male, even if he's gay. Actually, I think they hate white male gays more than they hate white male straight men. Actually, it's a weird dynamic, actually, that leftoids have. So they don't like him. That's number one. And number two, his absence for 2 full fucking months the second that he took the transport secretary job in order to go sit in a hospital bed and chest feed didn't look good. It looked out of touch. The problem is that this looks out of touch too. So you're establishing a pattern of out of touchness where a person has been carpetbagged into a role they're not really qualified for and they don't seem to care. If he were to express his sadness for the people in East Palestine and immediately show up, even if the response was bungled, he wouldn't get the blame for it. They would blame the FEMA director or the director of the EPA. And he could say, look, I really feel sorry for you. I realize that there's a problem here. I know that shit's fucked up. I sympathize. I'm sorry. I'm doing the best that I can. But, it takes a long time to hash these things together. He could have done that. But he didn't. Instead, he waited for Trump to show up. And then he gave the goddamn most god-awful lie you possibly could, which is that after being dismissive and saying, well, I'll show up when the time's right, he waited until exactly 24 hours after Trump left to show up. And nobody in the world genuinely believes that these two things are not interlinked. Trump shows up and all of a sudden Buttigieg decides to show up. Yeah, that's a coincidence. The coincidence of coincidences is that the very day that Buttigieg already planned to show up just happened to be right after, a few hours after Trump left. Sure it was, Pete. Everybody believes that. Dude, even fucking goddamn liberals don't believe you. They give you a pass because you've got a D after your name. Please don't send any more super chats, by the way, because I've got some other things to do. I actually have Franks and beans on the stove now. Slow cooking to perfection. Sparky called the Peter principle. Yes, exactly. It's literally what it's called. And it applies to Buttigieg, mayor of South Bend. He loves trains. James Flowers, feeding that chatbot sci-fi moral ethics questions. It's very fun, and I'm copying them word for word to use in my tabletop. Interesting. Ozzy's Robots, I'm just about ready to live stream, planning to do a few test streams. Any tips? Only have certain times available. Not sure how that lines up with my peeps. Also, any clankers good with OBS? HMU, Clank. I've used OBS before. I use StreamYard when it comes to streaming. So if anyone has any tips for Ozzy's robots, you can reach out to him. Yeah, I use StreamYard, and I multi-stream, of course, YouTube and Rumble. I've thought about adding other sites as well, but haven't yet. Sparky, Trump needs to explain how he let Gina Haspel and Pompeo fool him on the Skripal poisoning hoax and the Syrian gas attack hoax, and Soleimani's assassination. I'm not going to cry any tears for Soleimani. I oppose warmongering, but it was kind of funny to think of him being splattered in a sand dune. At least no kids died in that drone strike. It was expertly carried out. They probably would have preferred if it was next to a preschool, though. These people are insane. Crate Digger 81. Loved your video on 15-minute cities. I just read a local news article that there are plans to build one in my home state of Utah in 2024. Yeah, definitely get to protesting and knocking on doors then, because once that cancer is unleashed, it's going to be very difficult to surgically remove it. Elon's X. Making the move from Seattle, Washington to a nice suburb of Tampa, Florida. My boys will be learning core subjects and hoping they forgot the trans LGBTQ curriculum they were force-fed at 6 years and 8 years old. Good. Callahan SF2211. We know wind turbines kill raptors. Your thoughts on hypothesis offshore wind turbines killing whales? Crickets from environmentalists. Plausible, although I don't see how the turbines would kill the whales when the whales are in the water, not flying through the air. The sound that they make could be harmful, though. Steve Watt. Hello, Stick666. I love hearing the rain at night unless it smells like acid. Sorry for the super chat. No, I appreciate it. I'm always willing to take money. Yeah, exactly. If you're downwind from the East Palestine area as of the day of their particular derailment, yeah, there must have been something extra in the rain. Maybe it's just fertilizer, though. They find out that vinyl chloride, when decomposed under just the right conditions, delivers a dose of wonderful nitrogen to your plants. Why are our crops so fertile this year? They smell kind of funny, and the EPA tells us we're not allowed to sell them, but they really, really grew well. You end up with that. Il Sarto on Rumble. If I was a Netherlands farmer, I would be pretty disappointed to know someone with your following and benefiting from residency in my country was actively turning a blind eye to the protests. I don't. I've covered it multiple times, actually. I support the Dutch farmers completely. They're right to be pissed. They should not sell their farms. And if the Dutch government tries to compel them to sell, they should resist with all due diligence. That being said, I can't simply talk about that one issue every single day, so I have addressed it, I think, a half a dozen times on both live streams and standalone videos. The other thing is, of course, because I'm not natively Dutch, other than covering it more topically, I generally hesitate to talk about too many political topics from the country because it's not my home country. And I feel like I'm an ill guest if I do that, even if I'm right about them, even if a significant proportion of the Dutch population agrees with me on many of these things. Anyway, I think that I'm going to go offline now. I thank you to the almost 6,000 people that have tuned in live. But I have Franks and beans to stir, which might already be burning to the bottom of the pot, unfortunately. That's about all. Peace out.